Okay, so I felt like it was time for a new video update on the Toxic Rain slash Caustic Arrow build. I'm going to start out with a quick map, and then I'm going to go over the path of building that I've created and my guide on the official website. So you can reference for both of them when you league start. It's a very good league starter, and I think I'm going to be covering everything that you need to know when you league start with Caustic Arrow. But let's just run a quick map so you can see what to expect at the late game. On this setup, I'm actually using Explode Chest and a Frenzy on Hit. And I'm using an Awakened Curse on Hit for double curse on the bosses, but you can use a secondary link with Toxic Rain if you want to use that as well. The good thing with the Awakened Curse on Hit is that you can curse hexproof enemies and that you can apply 2 curses. This took me some time to build on Soul Found, but it's pretty good. And it has a very good endgame chest. So you just set up your Wither Totems and then curse it. If I were using Toxic Rain, then my boss damage would be much faster, right? But the clear speed is much faster like this. Okay. So that was the quick map. I'm just going to go over some of the endgame items that you should be aiming for. Either go for a Thicket Bow or a Marikath Bow with attack speed and damage over time multiplier, and then you can craft it like this. And I'll have a link in the description that shows how to finish a bow like this. For an armor, you just want high evasion rating and energy shield. Very end game, you can get these Frenchy charges on hit from Redeemer chests, and you can get Explode on kill from Crusader chests. For the Crusader mod, it needs to be a high eye level, like eye level 85. Um, the amulet you can craft with aberrant fossils. You need care skill gems or dexterity gems, but it's easier to hit with aberrant fossils, and then you also have a chance to hit the chaos damage over time multiplier. I like these combined hunter and shaper Furrows that adds chaos damage over time multiplier, but also adds an extra additional arrow. So I always get +1 arrow. Yeah. So I've theory crafted the rest of it in Path of Building. I'm going to link to this Path of Building, which you can then insert here with the paste bin, and then you'll load up this entire Path of Building. So I've made multiple threes so you know where to start. Like, this is the 14 points, and you should be hitting this before you face the first Act 1 boss. And then you go down to Myth of Madness and Hunter's Gambit. And you go up to Entropy and Growth and Decay. If you want more life, you can just pick up the life notes that's besides, but I usually do it after this because then I get a lot of life on the gear that gets multiplied by all these extra spots. And then I pick up some face acrobatics and yeah, life and Poacher's Aim from Act 5. This is 88 points. Like, what level are you now? Like 60 or something? 65. So you're just reaching maps now. And going down here and taking the thick skin and some extra life notes, and then they will add Wind Dancer to the next passive 3. So this is to say take Wind Dancer, right? This is a bigger with no clusters, so you can go up here and grab some life notes. I prefer doing that, and you can get some mana notes. It helps a bit with the early game. But if you have clusters, then you can do it like this. This is a one cluster, passive 3, where you get a large cluster with Wicked Paul and Unwavering Evil. Those are the big ones and the extra dual targets. Unholy Grace is also quite good because that's just no. Unholy Grace and Wicked Paul are the best ones because it's attack speed and skill effect duration. And then you can go for Unwavering Evil if you have room for it. So there's actually a small bug because I would like to have the medium clusters both ways. I think I have it here. Yeah, so you need to use the medium clusters, which adds damage over time multiply for chaos skills with Wicked Paul and Eternal Suffering. And then Fettle. I like Fettle, but you could also use the one with Energy Shield and Maximum Life. And then the same over here, right? You really like to have the additional chaos resistance on the small nodes and maybe elemental resistance as well. So I changed the passive 3 for level 90 here. You can see level 90. No, level 100. Where you respec out of these things to fit into clusters. And then you put in Unnatural Instinct here for a big boost. This is a cluster with 108 points, 110 points, where you get Elegant Form and Fatal and Face Acrobatics. The reason why Elegant Form is very good now is so you can achieve elemental avoidance with 100%, so you cannot get frozen or start burning or be shocked or any of the new elemental ailments either. Um, like you need to at the 109 points without the thread of hope. I'll add this afterwards, but you need to add our chaos damage over time multiplier cost as well. Like I've also added some early game items and mid game, Act 4 plus. And then this is the mapping items I used on Soul Self Found. I got all these items within 1 day and killed Awakener on hardcore as well. So this is just the items that I had on that guy. Like I found a Redeemer chests that I tried to roll the Frenzy charges on, but I couldn't hit it. But I got some pretty good mods, so I figured, okay, I'm going to use this. And I had farmed the Imperial Bow from Foothills. I like to farm Foothills like until level 74 or something like that because it gets you a lot of early gear and you get a lot of cards, like 10, 12 cards in that time. And then you can always go back when you have much faster clear speed, like in level 85, if you're starting to have issues when you map in the tier 12 department. Until then, you can just use a 5-link Marikath bow or Thicket bow with +2 to bow gems. Yeah, I found an early hunter curver. The base isn't that important. So just try to get the chaos damage over time multiplier. On Soul Self-Found I didn't have a lot of aberrant fossils, so I just rolled it with my alterations. I just tried to get life and attributes and resistance on the rest of the gear at this point, and then be immune to most of the ailments through my flasks. Like bleed is important, and freeze, and then curses, and then shock. Those are the most important. And then movement speed on the flask would be preferable. Late game items I've linked to one of the other guys that I have. Like very late game crafted bow. This one I crafted with one additional arrow because that's what I hit, and the damage over time multiplies, so it was fine. But I'd actually prefer having just attack speed. And then this is the penetrating arrow curve that I just showed, and this is just regular Sadist Garb with crafted maximum life as maximum energy shield. Some decent hunter gloves that I found where you can craft the cast damage over time multiplier on it, and you can also craft the ailment avoidance. In here in the skill gems I've set up from Act 1 and Act 2 which gems you should get, and Act 3. Act 3 you have the library. There's a lot of changes after the library, and I actually prefer running library and lab before I go and kill Grievous, because Grievous doesn't give us anything and Piety only gives us one extra skill gem, so it's much easier to kill them when you ascend it. And after you can get all these good gems from the library like Vicious Projectiles and Flesh and Stone and Second Wind. And you can also get your Wither Totem set up from the library, because then you can buy a Spell Totem support and get the faster casting from Act 2 and the Wither active gem from Act 1. In Act 4, after you can kill Malachi, then you can add a multiple totem if you have a 4-link with 2 red and 2 blue. Late game setups I have here. Like I really like using Pierce with my Caustic Arrow, because then I'm not depending on using Poacher's Aim or pathing up to piercing shots. But you could, when you get a lot of energy shield, you can use damage on full life support, or on bosses you can use concentrated effect. Let me just see here. If I take Caustic Arrow, then it gives me some. Yeah, you can use concentrated effect or efficacy, but efficacy adds the same damage as Pierce almost, and you have a lot of skill effect duration anyway. But you could use efficacy as well, and you can use concentrated effect or damage on full life. Like if I have full life always, then I can use damage on full life, and it will give a lot of extra damage compared to the Pierce, right? But that's up to you what you'd like to use. And you don't get empowered that early, so you could use Pierce instead of empower, and then use one of the other gems, right? Um, Toxic Rain. This is my setup, and that's if you use it in the bow. It achieves a lot of damage. 2, 4, 6, 7. It should have higher damage. But if you use it in the bow, then I like these with Mirror Charger. But if you use it in the chest, then I would probably shift out Empower for Calling Strike. So you can have Calling Strike with the Toxic Rain setup on a 4-link or something like that. And I have which auras we use, like Malevolence, Val, Discipline, and Flesh and Stone. But if you have one of the new Skitterbot rings that makes a curse, then don't use Malevolence, but just use Skitterbots instead. And that will also make it easier for mana sustain early game. Then I have a Val Grace set up with increased duration and cost 1 damage taken with Immortal Call. And I've set it optional to fit in Clarity. if you can get the mana reserve. Like if I use the best in slot items, then we have our helmet enchant that has reduced malevolence reservation. Then you can fit all the auras. Otherwise, you might need to use skitterbuts. And then I have a curse and hit despair ring. I've also made a lot of notes, like what you should do in Act 1 and what you should do in Act 2 and Act 3 and etc. Otherwise, I would like to refer to the guide I have on the official webpage. It's just called Hasunic League Start. I'll probably edit the title a bit for the next league. I have the path of building in here, but I'll also link that in description. And then I have some showcase videos. But the good things are how you should set up your ascendancy if you forget it, and what pantheons I'd like to use, and some leveling trees if you don't use the path of building. Yeah, there's a small bug I need to fix here. Just some quick photos on how to set up the passive tree, and some video showcases, and then some gear from some earlier leaks I have in a comment. But in the gear section, I'm linking to some decent starter bows you can use, and like, okay, now I have my Imperial bow. I crafted it with the fossils that I mentioned, Aberrant and not Aberrant, but you craft it with Corroded and Metallic and Jack Fossil, and the late game bow. And some body armors, like Kaka's Jack is very useful, and Kintsugi is also very good armor, and Queen of the Forest and Restless Sword. So there's some good options for armors that you can use, and you can craft these later on, or just try to get a high effective hit points, say the Scarp early, and then a very good late game chest I've linked to as well. Then which kind of queries you can use? It's either a Meloni's mechanism, but if you have the Frenchy charge and hit chest, then Meloni's isn't that good anymore, because then you can get some extra arrows or damage over time multiplier and more life, right? Um, the helmets, I like Vertex. It's easy to get helmet, and it's usually very cheap, and it makes your auras more effective, and it also increases the level on the enlighten, making it reduce your mana more. Otherwise, you can get hubris circles. I level 85 and try to craft with the reduced mana resistance on nearby enemies, but it's very hard to hit. And then you also craft this avoid elemental elements on it for late game. The boots at City Step, very good early boots, and then you can just try to get some two-toned later on. But basically, you just want some life, resistance, and movement speed. There's some other boots I've used earlier, like Onslaught on Kill, but late game you can go for the Shaper boots with Avoid Elemental Ailments. And I crafted this in 10 attempts using Shuddering Fossil, that's the speed, and Prismatic, so I have easier to hit the Elemental Ailments, and Pristine for life. And this was a very decent result. But you need eye level 86 if you want the 35% movement speed, right? Gloves. I crafted this pretty quickly. With high life and high energy shield and some resistance and avoid elemental ailments. Otherwise, you can use some hunter gloves that I showed earlier with chaos resistance and chaos damage over time multiplier. Attack speed is very good. I've mentioned all on everything which good mods there are. Jewelry, as I mentioned, chaos damage, chaos skill gems, life, energy shield, resistances, chaos damage over time multiplier is good. The rings you want, the non-channeling skills have reduced mana cost if you're going to use Toxic Rain in late game, but Caustic Arrow don't need it that much. With Caustic Arrow, it's better to have some mana regen. Yeah, I've linked a bunch of rings that I've used throughout the time in here. The Profane Proxy that I mentioned is also very good early because you get a very high level Despair Curse that's applied by your Skitterbots. It makes your mapping much faster, and then you don't have to self curse on the boss. And you also don't need to use a gem slot on Despair before you get a Despair on hit ring. And then a build. I crafted this with Pristine and Aberrant and Sanctified Fossil. It took me a while to hit, but you can get a lot of life from that build. A Hunter influenced Stygian Vice. And it's very good to get a Searching Jewel with some life and onslaught on hit. So you can save a flash slot for something better. And jewels, I just mentioned some good mods like life and energy shield, attack speed, resistances, and some damage mods. Abyssal jewels is the same, like life, ES, onslaught on kill, resistance, damage over time. The Watcher's Eyes is Malevolence and damage over time multiplier from Malevolence or immune to bleed. Clarity, reduce mana cost, and Discipline fast the start of a year's recharge if that's pretty good. Yeah. So, I think that's it. I've played the build a ton of times and I've killed Awakener on Soul Self Found. Hardcore, Awakener 8, I killed him multiple times before my character ripped. But it's very good for hardcore, but there's like a point when you play it where you really would like to get more hit points, but you cannot get it before you get the Thread of Hope. The Thread of Hope in this position where you get Phase Acrobatics and Silent Steps and Hunter's Gambit is very strong. But before you get that, then your hit points, you maybe have like 5-6k life and maybe 1k inch shield, and sometimes that can be a little bit sketchy on hardcore. It's going to be better with the Wind Dancer because then when you get hit, you actually have like 120% more effective hit points because it's reduced damage. And if you could use Kintsugi early on, then it also reduces the damage taken. Yeah, that's it, and I hope you can use the guide and have a nice day. Bye.